So level 3 of our program, week 3, is all about mindfulness within a tradition. So we look at interspiritual mindfulness practices and teachings and how they connect with various psychological or religious traditions. And then we look at the tradition perhaps and see, well, what practices are offered in the tradition itself, particularly in the contemplative sides, and do they bring the person, where do they bring the person? Do they bring them into the interspiritual domain or not? The traditions we'll call on will be Christian contemplation, Buddhism, Jungian psychology, Celtic shamanism, and many others. So this is where we will take our simple model of mindfulness, meditation, and contemplation, which we've looked at in terms of personal development, and we've looked at now in terms of spiritual development, connecting to oneness, connecting to the self, and then connecting to oneness, the big self. And what happens to that model if a tradition is wrapped around it? What does that look like? How do the practices change or not? So, for example, in Christian contemplation, meditation becomes centering prayer. And then how different or how similar is that? So I find that really, really interesting to see how how the basic interspiritual domain then connects to different traditions. And also for ourselves, then how can we reference a tradition? So in the language that I'm using for teaching, or in the language that I'm using for doing a practice or giving a practice, if I'm using certain language, even if I use the word, say, angel, or if I use the word soul, connect now to your soul, what tradition am I referencing? And then how do I reference that correctly in the practice? So it's inclusive, no matter what beliefs are in the room or in the people around you, everyone feels included and can relate to the practice. That's what we're aiming for here. So it's a way of integrating the language of traditions. We're not excluding any tradition, we're finding a way of including traditions by referencing them. But we need to know first, obviously, we need to know how that connects to our model. So in our inner journey then, we'll also be looking at, we've moved from the ego to the observing self and the authentic self or oneness. But we'll also be looking then in this week at how we integrate the shadow. So that's a key element in the inner journey. How do we integrate the shadow side of ourselves, and what that means for our practice and for and in our teaching with others. And then for our three basic areas, the head, the heart, and the gut or the body, we'll be looking at in those three basic practices, what happens if we put them into a tradition. So if I'm doing a heart practice in the Buddhist tradition, then it becomes metta, which is a loving kindness practice. And what sort of imagery and language is used, and richness perhaps is used in that because of the tradition. And does it do the same does it affect the same outcome if the tradition isn't there, or the language isn't there, or the wrapping isn't there? So we'll be exploring those questions together in our practice, again using the MBI TAC assessment criteria to examine the domains of our practice and how we're working. And then also, of course, we'll be continuing our QQI module around adult learning. We'll be looking at how we design a program, how we assess the learning from the students, and then how we evaluate the program with the students to improve it as we move forward. So all of that will be going on. You'll get a chance, obviously, like every week, you get a chance to be the teacher yourself and deliver some of the practices and some of the teaching around them, to try that out in a safe environment. And then also our ritual for the third week will be a Celtic Irish blessing based on the work of John O'Donoghue. So another ritual to kind of hold the week together. So very much looking forward to this week. It's very interesting how we can connect to different traditions, whether they're psychological or religious. And the big question is, if I am practicing within a tradition or a religion or whatever it might be, does it bring me into the interspiritual domain and affect certain outcomes or not? Okay, thank you.